your interest in Frank, discussions with Frank, offers, and how all that kind of came together?
Yeah, look, I mean, we spoke about the process. It was really interesting this time around compared to last time. Obviously, when we were hiring Tata Martino, we didn't have the stadium, we didn't have the training ground, we only had a few players on board. So it was a little bit different, coming into this hire, because obviously Atlanta United now are known throughout the world really as one of the top clubs in MLS, and with our amazing fan base, that gives us that sort of recognition that coaches have heard about, and so that opened the field. And I'd say we had about 50 people that I'd called, sort of serious inquiries that we whittled down to in effect a sort of short list of about 10 that we really focused on, and then there was about 5 to 6 that we had sort of discussions with to narrow it down. Frank was one of those on the short list. Look, I was aware of him obviously through his history, the time he had at Ajax. He was a great sort of winner there with Ajax. Things didn't work out quite so well at Inter and Crystal Palace, but to be honest with me, my view, and it's the same with players, but I think it's more so with coaches. Certain coaches fit certain clubs well, and I think if you look at what Frank had at Ajax, albeit we're on a different level here at Atlanta United, I feel that it's a great fit both for Atlanta United but also for Frank, because he has a structured system here in place that allows him to do what he does best, and that's to coach out on the field. And I think we're built as a club in a structure that will get the best out of Frank, and I think that's what he was looking for when we're having those discussions. Obviously we're talking about the tactical side of things, the players that we've got here, the infrastructure, but I think just as important to Frank was the core values we have here, the way that we try to build the team, the way we try to build the club in the community. I think that was just as important, and that's what made it such a great match.
When did y'all first have a conversation? October, September?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably around the sort of October time. We didn't do the detailed discussions until after we won MLS Cup. We wanted to focus on the season at hand, but once the MLS Cup was finished, that's when it got super busy for us. So I can't believe we're here today, first day of pre-season. It literally feels like we just had the parade and the season starting over. But it's a great position for us to be in terms of we're excited that pre-season's here, and we've got another chance now for an exciting season with Champions League.
Is this another 2-year deal with options, similar to what Martino had?
No, this is a multi-year deal, longer than 2 years.
Multi-year deal longer than 2 years. Okay.
It's pretty impressive. Had you had a relationship with Frank from your time at Tottenham when you talk about hiring Mauricio Pochettino there, and he was reportedly a finalist candidate for that job? Did you have a relationship from him?
Look, soccer is, it's a global village, and it's built up a relationship. So we've got a relationship right from when we signed Christian Eriksen, Jan Vertonghen, a number of players that came from Ajax, from that great teams that Frank had, into Tottenham. So, soccer's a small world. I think it's really important that you have those relationships, because you never know when something's going to come up. And clearly it's always an advantage when you've got that relationship with someone from a previous club, because it helps you when you're, you want to gain that intelligence, that background, and sometimes you've already got it there because of your past experience.
And speaking about those younger players that you signed at Tottenham, or the Tottenham signed, how much did that go into the philosophy of bringing 3 young players and bringing in a coach who's had such success with them?
Yeah, look, it's fundamental. We said right from the very start when we were looking for our coach, we're obviously focused on the first team results, but part of Atlanta United and part of the club and part of our medium to long-term success is going to be the academy. And so it was really important to us that we had somebody that bought into that idea of this pipeline from the academy through our USL team into the first team. And no one does that better than Ajax. And Frank started his career as a youth team coach with Ajax, so he instantly has that understanding of what it is to create a young player. He's not afraid to play young players. He understands that pipeline. And also it's a great inspiration for our club, because our academy manager from Tony Annan right the way down, they've got somebody now that's head coach of the club, that's been there on the coalface with the academy, understands the frustrations, the pressures, and so I think that sends a real message that this is important to Atlanta United. So from Frank's perspective, yes, he's got that first team experience, but it was really important to us that he had that player development philosophy and background and proven experience in that field.
You mentioned he really understands the core values that you guys have here at Atlanta United. What do you feel about his core values that made you want to bring him on as a coach, him as a person, him as a man, and how he interacts with other folks?
Yeah, and I think you got a flavour of that just in the press conference today. But this is someone who as a player, he's had the most amazing career, built it up through hard work, endeavour. This is a guy that was the ultimate professional. He then carried that on into coaching and did it the hard way, like I said, through the academy before he became the head coach at Ajax. So he didn't just jump into a head coaching job and think he was ready straight away. He went through that system. And I think, I go back to Ajax, I think they are a club, for me, even when Carlos and I first had that chat about what did we want Atlanta United to be, and we had the sort of a 3-hour discussion, and we were really just sort of spitballing in terms of ideas. For me, one thing that stood out from my time at Tottenham was those players that came from Ajax, whatever happens in the future, they will always consider themselves Ajax players, because they do a great job right from a young age in building up that culture about bringing players back even when they've left the club to celebrate them. And so when we're talking about what we want Atlanta United to be, I think Ajax is a sort of beacon of that type of club that does things right and has that culture and core values in place. So, clearly Frank has that from his time there. Yes, we're a different club, but some of those core values that we've tried to create here, I think, are very similar. And that's where I think, he's a great fit for us, and likewise, we're a great fit for him.
Darren,
The project, the DeBoer project is very fascinating, creating the pipeline, youth development, but any coach that comes in and manages this team now has the pressure to win right away, win a championship, win titles. Can you just talk about just expectations for 2019 for a first-year coach?
Yeah, look, we want to always compete. So, we're defending MLS Cup champions, so we want to be competing, obviously, for the MLS Cup. US Open Cup's really important to us. Every competition, we want to have a chance to win. US Open Cup also gives you that chance to qualify for Champions League, so it's another important factor. Then, of course, we've got Champions League. So for us, that was a real statement to be able to qualify, into the Champions League in only our third season. And we spoke about the fact that MLS, as a general group, needs to do better in that tournament. We need to have an MLS club win it, and it would be great if that could be Atlanta United to be the first team. But look, we're not naive. We saw what happened to Toronto. They went from being the best team in the history of MLS to doing really well in the Champions League, but it took its toll in terms of the MLS, and they didn't qualify for the playoffs. So we're not under any illusions that it's going to be tough, but we want to be competing on all fronts. And we are trying to put together that squad, and it gets a little bit easier each year to have that depth. First year it was very difficult as an expansion team. Second year we were able to add a little bit more depth, and we'll continue trying to do that to give Frank the best tools possible to compete across the different competitions. But the reality is, it is difficult. It's something that the league always has to keep improving on, because we need to get the academies producing players so that we can have that strength in depth. We need our Atlanta United second team to be helping us get those minutes for those players, and then the league itself needs to do all it can to sort of help the club. So in future years, whether that's having a longer pre-season, there's clearly things we can do as a league to help our clubs better prepare for both Champions League and MLS, and that's something I think we have to do. We know that it's a focus of the league, so we've got to put our money where our mouth is and actually provide the tools for those clubs to be able to compete against the Mexican clubs.
Darren, do you see Frank maintaining sort of the attacking offensive style that obviously Tata brought here and has been very successful and popular with the fans, obviously, and as a follow-up to that too, obviously Tata, the whole connection to the Latin America and South America, gave you all sort of a connection there to. Do you see him maintaining that sort of pipeline that has obviously worked so well for you guys the last couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of pipeline, there's no doubt that it's been really successful for us in terms of the way that we build the club. Now, football's a global game, so we're always going to be looking globally for our players to replace and to improve the squad, and always be looking to improve the squad every single window if we can. We've got to keep doing that. If we stand still, we're going to get caught. So we've always got to be sort of innovating and trying to evolve the squad. So there's no doubt that we're going to have that connection. And you saw today, Frank speaks Spanish. He had his time at Barcelona. He's recognised as famous ex-player as well as a top coach. So I've got no doubt that we're not going to be hindered in our recruitment from South America, but it may help us in certain other areas as well, because he has that profile as an ex-player in Europe as well. So I think that will be good. I think in terms of his style of play, it's really interesting actually. We will be facing different challenges. We saw it a little bit in our second season where teams parked the bus and we had to be a little bit more possession-based, even under Tata. And I think it's staggering if you look at some of the key attributes statistically on how we played, particularly in our second season with Tata, and how Ajax teams under Frank performed. Because what you had at Ajax was a team that had, was at the top of the table, was playing against teams that would try and come defensively, and you have to find sometimes different solutions to break down teams. And I think that experience that Frank had his time of repeating as champions at Ajax will set him in good stead here at Atlanta United, because we're still